Hey guys, Dr. Ryan Lowery here. Today we're going to be talking about 5 ways to break through a plateau on a ketogenic diet. So if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and then also make sure you click the little bell at the top and turn notifications on. That way, as we launch a whole new series of YouTube videos, you will get alerted because we have a lot of new and exciting information coming out. So today's topic is plateaus, right? You might be in the midst of a plateau. You might have overcome a plateau, or you might be worried about hitting a plateau. And you know what? That's okay. Because the first thing that we need to do is we need to understand what's drawing, or where are you drawing your conclusion of a plateau from? What does that mean? Is there a definition for what defines a plateau? And unfortunately, there isn't. And one thing I caution people is be very, very careful of using day-to-day variations to say, oh, I'm in a plateau. I haven't lost any weight over the last 2 days. That's normal fluctuation, right? Has months gone by, right? Or is it just days? Did something change in your life? Are you on new medications? Are you just taking a new job? Do you have financial stress? Are you not going to the gym anymore? What is going on in your life that might have changed, that could have triggered some type of stall or plateau before you say, is it the diet itself, right? Understand those. Maybe right now, if you have a piece of paper, or grab a notepad and just write down since when you saw your best results, when you were seeing your most optimal, best results, you are losing body fat and you felt great, to where you are now, what are some things that have changed? Just take a little moment, write them down. Has it been you haven't gone to the gym as much? Are you stressed out because the kids are home all day long? Have you changed up something about your supplement regimen? Are you on TikTok all night long and not getting sleep? What are some things? And be honest with yourself. And I promise you, we'll address some tips to help you overcome those. The first one I want to talk about is break down your current routine, right? In order for you to change, you have to adapt or change your current routine. But before you do that, you have to break it down. So recently, one of the benefits of our Keto Club and Keto Mastery students is they get personal access to me. So a Keto Club member was texting me and he was saying, you know what, I'm stalled, I'm plateaued. And I just started making these changes over about a month ago. So I said, hey, hit me with what you've been eating and what you've been consuming. And they were doing a typical intermittent fast, but their first meal was a plant-based protein shake and a ton of MCT oil. And that was his lunch of what broke his fast. And I said, well, when was the last time you started seeing results and you were really doing well? He goes, well, before I kind of made the switch. And he had switched over from having animal-based protein to now having this plant-based protein shake, right? And what do we know? If you guys have watched my previous video on vegan and vegetarian and how I kind of did that vegan experiment, you know that plant-based protein sources are a lot less likely to trigger muscle protein synthesis because they're deficient in certain amino acids. So he wants to stick with the plant-based protein, which is fine, but he needs to supplement in additional essential amino acids. He needs to make sure he's getting in more leucine, because otherwise he's not triggering muscle growth during that meal. And the other thing I talked to him about is maybe instead of having so much MCT oil, cut it back a bit. Maybe instead use an MCT oil powder. You still get the same volume, but it's not a ton, as many calories, and you might not have as many GI issues. So small tweaks like that, really take a minute and analyze what you're currently eating. Are you really not snacking after 10 p.m.? Are you kind of just telling yourself, oh my gosh, this keto thing isn't working? But every night at 10 p.m. when you're stressed because the kids or financial or work stress or all of these things are building up, you go have a little bite of something. Is that really happening? So be honest with yourself. Break down your current routine and then make adjustments. Maybe it's just switching up the different protein sources. Maybe it's supplementing something back in. Maybe it's changing another aspect of your day. And those are some of the things we're going to be talking about. So first one is you need to break down and then adapt your current routine. The second one is tough for some people, but can see huge benefits, and that is change your eating window, right? A lot of times, people who are on a ketogenic diet tend to intermittent fast. In most cases, that intermittent fast tends to happen where they don't eat breakfast, they tend to eat lunch and then dinner, right? Well, if you're really stalled and you broke down your routine, you got everything in check, you're on a well-formulated ketogenic diet, and some of these other aspects I'm gonna talk about in a bit are really on point, then this shift can radically change your entire body composition. It's something that's hard, it's a little bit difficult to do, but if you can pull it off even a couple days a week, it's gonna see substantial results. And that is change your eating windows. There are studies that have done where they take a model where they feed animals, for example, the same amount of calories, the exact same amount of calories, same diet, and they take them and they feed them either lunch or they feed them a small breakfast, a moderate sized lunch, or a big dinner, versus giving them a big breakfast, a moderate sized lunch, and a small dinner. Which group do you think has the best body composition results? Theoretically, they're both eating the same amount of calories, right? So the people who are calories in, calories out would say it's the exact same. There's gonna be no differences. Wrong. There are differences. The group that had bigger meals earlier on in the day and then lighter meals at night saw better benefits in body composition, greater decreases in fat mass and more optimal body composition. Likely due to the fact, think about what you're doing throughout the entire day. You're more active. We know when you're moving and you're around, that helps lower blood glucose. So having a bigger meal earlier on, when you're more active, you could theoretically see why that might be beneficial. So maybe twice a week to start, shift that eating window. I know it's difficult because a lot of times we get home from work or you're at home with family and it's easy to have like a nice dinner, but maybe on just 2 days a week, shift that window and instead eat like a big breakfast and a moderate sized lunch and then kind of fast until the next day, versus doing what most people typically do, which is fast during breakfast, have a light lunch and a big dinner. So that's the second one, change or shift your eating window. The third one is cycle your calories. I see this happen all the time. And a perfect study is if you look at The Biggest Loser, right? You look at what they do on The Biggest Loser and you guys know they put those people through hell. They have them work out like crazy. They're burning a ton of calories. They're eating a very low calorie diet and they're eating maybe 500, 1,000 calories a day. And guess what happens to their metabolism? It goes down over time. And in fact, there was a study looking 6 years after they were on the show The Biggest Loser, their metabolism was still suppressed, right? They still didn't have the same metabolism they did when they walked onto the show because they were at such a linear caloric deficit. One of the ways to avoid that, one of the ways to avoid this metabolic adaptation where your metabolism tends to slow down with dieting is calorie cycle, right? On days that you're more active, say you're going out on a hike or you're going to the gym and maybe you're having a hard training session, maybe bump your calories up on those days. On days that you're sitting at home and you're just enjoying friends and family, maybe watching Netflix, there's no need to have as many calories, right? Looking at it as fueling your body, providing a fuel for your body. When you're driving a car a long distance, you need more fuel. When it's sitting in the driveway, it doesn't need as much fuel, right? It's the same thing with our bodies. When we're not as active, we don't need as much fuel. When we're more active, provide it more fuel. Versus some people who will stay at 1,500 or 1,200 calories for months and their metabolism will adapt. To avoid that, calorie cycle. And one of the ways that you can do that, one of my favorite ways to do that is by protein cycling. So on some days, I just bring down fat a little bit and replace and kind of bump up protein a little bit higher. Get in more calories from protein because protein is a very inefficient storing calorie. You don't store protein calories as easily as carbohydrate or fat, right? So some days I'll go pretty high, like if I'm going to a Brazilian steakhouse. I have a decent amount of fat, but I have way more protein. Those days, that day might be my high calorie day, but it's also a day that I'm gonna work out hard, I'm gonna be active, and probably do some type of fast because I'm probably gonna be eating 3,000, 4,000 calories at a Brazilian steakhouse, right? So that's just an example of how you can do that. Another way is around your menstrual cycle for females, tailoring in carbohydrates, caloric cycle with carbohydrates. Utilize them as a tool. And one of our colleagues, Chelsea, has a full keto class on this inside of Keto Club, breaking down how women can kind of incorporating carbohydrates around their menstrual cycle, because at some points during their menstrual cycle, they're better carb users, when right after they become way better fat users, right? So why not allow your body and your diet to go along with your hormones and kind of what's going on in your body, right? So we talked about breaking down and changing your current routine. We talked about changing your eating window or shifting that eating window. Third one we talked about is cycling your calories and potentially doing that with protein. The fourth one that I want to bring up is change up your exercise routine. And for some of you, that might mean just get started, right? If you're plateaued and you're not really moving a lot, one of the best ways to do it is get something that tracks your steps. Aim for 10,000 steps a day. Get in a step challenge, whether there's a million devices that are out, or if you have an Apple Watch, you can do it with that and challenge friends to it. Have some accountability. Make sure you're aiming to get at minimum 10,000 steps per day. And that's your first step. But also, if you're in the gym and you're exercising, try not to do the same thing every single day, right? And I know it's easy because a lot of people, they don't like to break down or break down muscle or go through the pain. They kind of just want to make it feel like they're doing well. I'll give you a perfect example. I love my dad to death, but every time he goes into the gym, he goes in and he hits a little bit of chest and then he'll just hit arms. And he's got great arms. Great, he just hits arms. I'm like, Dad, you need to like switch it up a little bit. Sometimes go in, do legs, change up the exercises. Instead of just doing preacher curls on arms, maybe do dumbbells, maybe do tricep or rope curls, maybe try incorporating some triceps. Variety is key when it comes to making adaptations in the gym. And there's a term called periodization, and that is changing up your exercise frequency, changing up your reps, changing up your sets. And I won't go too much into that because my friend, Dr. Jacob Wilson, goes all into this inside of a keto class, inside of Keto Club, all about how to optimize your exercise routine through periodization. But in essence, it's some days maybe you're doing 12 to 15 reps and you're doing maybe 60 to 70% of your 1 repetition maximum. On other days, you might go heavy. You might just do 5 repetitions, but it's gonna be like 80% of your 1 repetition max. On some days, you might just do 50% and do 25 to 50 reps. Change it up. Don't stay stagnant, right? Just like with calories, same thing happens with your exercise routine. Change it up. Sometimes have harder training days, sometimes have lighter training days, and make sure you're trying to hit every body part at minimum 1, but ideally twice a week. Now, the 5th one that I want to talk about is the toughest one, especially for me. And I stink at this one, but it's something that when I focus on it, it makes a drastic change in my body composition. And that is sleep. Make sleep a priority. It does not matter how hard you train, how dialed in your nutrition is, how amazing your supplementation is. If your sleep stinks, you will see very minimal gains. You will see very minimal adaptations. You need to give your body time to recover. Some of you watching this are like, I have no problem with that. But there's others that are like me that like, it's difficult for me unless I make sleep a priority it's easy for me to just cut it out, right? It's easy for me to say, well, I have a ton of work to do, so I'll just wake up at 5 and I went to bed at midnight, right? That's not ideal. If your goal is changing your body composition or you're stuck in a plateau, make sure you're not only getting ample amounts of sleep, but getting good quality sleep. There's a big difference. And so some keys to get good quality sleep, meaning like the amount of time you're in REM or deep sleep, some things to think about. Don't sit on your phone in bed, as difficult as this may be, and scroll through Instagram. Hopefully you're not watching this video while you're laying in bed getting ready to go to sleep. If you are, turn it off and come back tomorrow and watch it. Don't scroll through TikTok, right? That's a lot of blue light that's entering into your eyes, and blue light suppresses something that's very important called melatonin. Our body's own production of melatonin gets suppressed when we have blue light. It's one of the reasons why in the morning when you're trying to wake up, it's important to get in blue light, right? Go outside, get sunlight, you turn on all the lights inside of your home, you get a lot of that blue light and you wake up because it's suppressing the melatonin. At nighttime, you want the opposite. So you want to minimize blue light. You can wear those blue light blocking glasses that make you look like a cool gamer. I have a pair that are like really, really orange. But again, try and keep your phone out of the bed and you're scrolling all the time. At minimum, lower the brightness on your screen. If you have an iPhone, I don't know if other phones can do that, but I know on an iPhone you can lower your brightness. It's very important. Another thing you can get are blackout curtains, right? Any light peeping through from outside is not good, so try and get some blackout curtains. And then especially now that it's summertime, it's warm, try and keep it cool, right? If you're sweating or you're uncomfortable in bed, you're gonna be tossing and turning. And even though you might be in bed for 8 hours, you might only be getting 3 hours of high quality sleep because you're tossing and turning so much. And then the last one is try not to eat a big meal at least 3 hours before bed, right? Or anything for that matter. Try and just consume water or something light or some tea within 3 hours of going to bed. We know that when you eat and you're going through that digestion process close to bed, it affects growth hormone. And growth hormone is very important for our body to produce to optimize sleep. So we covered 5. We covered breaking down your current routine and making a shift or changing it, switching some things up. The second one we covered was changing your eating window. Maybe instead of eating lunch and dinner, maybe shift that a couple days a week to breakfast and lunch. Third one is cycle your calories. You can do that primarily by having higher protein days and maybe coming down on fat a little bit. The fourth one is switching up your exercise routine. We talked about a term called periodization. And then the fifth one is making sleep a priority, right? Having good nighttime habits, making sure you're optimizing not just the time, but the quality of sleep that you're getting. And I actually want to give you guys a bonus. I want to give you one more tip to break through plateaus on a ketogenic diet. And this one for many of you right now may be the toughest. And trust me, I understand. And that is focus on reducing stress, right? 2020 has been a year of unpredictability, of who knows what's getting thrown at us tomorrow. So much unpredictability, and there's so much uncertainty, and you know what that creates? A ton of anxiety. And people's anxiety is through the roof because they're so uncertain of what tomorrow holds, right? And so they're stressed out. Cortisol's through the roof, and when cortisol's high, guess what happens? You hold on to a lot of body fat. It's very difficult to lose body fat, if at all possible, when you're stressed out. So what do you need to do? Well, we had our good friend Tony Robbins give a talk at our recent Global Virtual Keto Summit, and he talked about a perfect tactic, and that is you have to shift your focus, which will shift your mind, which will change the outcome, right? Shift your focus, which will shift your mind, which will change the outcome. Now, what I mean by that is right now you might be sitting in a position where you're worried about all of the stuff that's happened. Oh my God, COVID's everywhere. I talk about there's so much craziness going on the media, and people are struggling, and you're trying to figure out how you're going to provide for your family, and all these, there's so much stress, right? You're focusing on all these things, and a lot of which are out of your control, right? We can't control a lot of what's going on with COVID-19, right? But one thing we can control is right here. We can control our body's own immune function. We can give ourselves its best shot, and we can control how we shift here. If you shift mentally to instead shift to a place of gratitude, instead shift to a place of excitement about the future and what's coming, you will radically change your life, and you will reduce that cortisol, you will reduce that stress. There's studies looking at people who have a more positive or optimistic outlook, and their cortisol levels are a lot lower than people who not only just have a pessimistic outlook, but people who don't have an optimistic outlook. People who are just like, so-so. People who have a positive or optimistic outlook have a lot lower cortisol level than people who are so-so or even pessimistic. And so if you can shift and instead focus on all the things you're grateful for, I challenge you Take out a notebook every morning. If you don't already do this, write down 3 things you're grateful for. You're grateful for a roof over your head. You're grateful for running water, because guess what? A lot of people don't have that. You're grateful for a healthy family. You're grateful for healthy friends. You're grateful for so much. If you have a car, you're grateful for that. If you have a lunch date or a date later on in the week, you're grateful for that. All of these things, there's so much in the world to be grateful for. If you instead start focusing on that and you focusing on the things that you're excited about, you're excited about post-COVID-19. You're excited about the future with your family. You're excited about being able to go to Disney World again with your family. You're excited about being able to travel again. You're excited about being able to get back to a new normal. You're excited about being able to go to the grocery store or go hang out with friends and family and hug them. Focus on that excitement. Focus on things that make you happy, that get you excited, and that are grounded in a place of gratitude. And so I hope that helps many of you, some ways to break through plateaus on a ketogenic diet. As always, we're here to help. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. And we appreciate you guys for tuning in. As always, make positivity louder. We'll talk to you soon.